Okay, well, good afternoon and good morning, everyone, and welcome to the LSU Mendel Food Symposium. Dr. Hubchin will be saying a few introductory comments here, and then we'll go ahead and get started.
Okay, I'd like to echo this. Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you're based right now. My name is Jonathan Hubchin. I'm the Assistant Director for the LSU AgCenter's Global Network. I'm going to be providing technical support to Dr. Pika, who will be serving as the moderator for this session. I would first like to have the honor of introducing him. Dr. Pika is a professor of horticulture at the LSU School of Plant, Environmental, and Soil Sciences. He has expertise in horticultural production, post-production, and activities all along the market chain for horticultural products, including international trade. In that area, he's worked in over 100 countries, providing technical assistance in the horticultural field. He's had experience with the partnership between Louisiana State University and Mendel University since its inception, and is therefore uniquely qualified to moderate this session. Dr. Pika.
Thank you, Jonathan. Well, good morning, everyone, and good afternoon, everyone, to the LSU Mendel University Food Symposium. We have an exciting list of speakers this morning for our 2-hour session, focused more on horticultural crops and some of the diverse activities that we're all involved in. So I guess without further ado, what we're going to do is go through the list of speakers, and we're going to start with Dr. Robert Fakluda of Mendel University. Each of us will give about a 15-minute talk, followed by a few minutes of questions, answers, discussion. Without further ado, it's my pleasure and honor to introduce our first speaker of the symposium, Dr. Robert Fakluda. Robert is the head of the Department of Vegetable Sciences and Floriculture at Mendel University in Lednice, Czech Republic. Robert has a diverse background and a diverse area of interest. His focuses involve vegetable physiology, phytopathology, and greenhouse production, including soilless production systems. And he's currently working on activities actively involved in aquaponics. So Robert, it's an honor and a pleasure, and Robert will be giving the first talk entitled Staple Vegetable Species Production, Consumption, Nutritional Input to Human Diet. Robert, please.
Once more, good afternoon, good morning, everybody. It's a really big pleasure to me to speak to such a nice auditorium, and let me share my presentation, which was already named and has such aspiration to show what could be staple vegetable species and their importance to our diet. I hope all of you is able already to see my presentation now.
Yes, we can see it.
Yeah. And,
yes.
At the moment, I would like to start with such view on production side. So here you can see, let's say, countries with important portion of vegetable production within the world, and such data show us relatively very clearly that in China, the more than half of total vegetable production is produced each year. But if we will go further, we can see United States has 30 million of tons of vegetable produced each year, which means 3% of total world production. Maybe it looks not so big, but if I will just slightly comment the situation in Czech Republic, we will be far away of the last country mentioned here, Republic of Korea, with our 300,000 tons. It's really a relatively neglected amount. What I would like to show here in this video is that beyond of the US situation and India as the second biggest producer, within European countries, we can speak about few like Spain, Russian Federation, and or if we can consider somehow Turkey, which are three countries producing substantially big portion of vegetables, but the rest is mostly again Asian and some African countries. So this is only just for beginning, let's say, because now we will focus much more on US and Czech situation and some small comparison of our production, consumption, and other aspects. Here in this picture, you can see information about the US production of mange vegetables in year 2019. And all these data show us that we can speak about some 10 vegetables which are doing substantial part of total production. And definitely there is no surprise that tomatoes are making a big part, nearly 11 million tons. We can summarize from the point of the ratios, which now you can see that those tomatoes are 36% of total production. And the other important vegetables are lettuce with 12%, onion 11%, maize 10%, carrot 8%, and so on. So this is the structure we can consider as important vegetables grown in the US, and we can later on a bit compare to a consumption side of this issue. If we will compare the production of US to the Czech from the point of the ratios, you can see here in this figure that we do not see much of tomatoes. Tomatoes makes just about 11,000 tons of production, which can be explained, but first, much worse climatic conditions. Second, quite intensive and labor demanding production, especially for field production of tomatoes intended for fresh market. So what are important vegetables from production side in Czech Republic? Onions, cabbage, carrot. All these three, as you can see now, makes, let's say, 40% of our production. So this is main, like the Holy Trinity, let's say, of cabbage, of vegetables produced in Czech Republic. And the rest is not so important from the point of the production. However, again, we can see later differences to the consumption proportions. If we will look on the proportions and differences between US consumption and Czech, production and Czech production, let's say onion or carrot are relatively similar case, but we can see big difference in tomato, whereas in US there is 36% of total production, in contrary to the only 4% of our production. By the way, production of tomatoes is growing now in not only in Czech Republic but in Central Europe, because it looks like the most profitable crop, but in a protected cultivation system. It means in greenhouses. Another quite different story is lettuce, where we can again see that there is a double size of the ratio in the US if compared to Czech Republic. And oppositely, Czech Republic and other Central European countries has a higher level of production of cabbage and related species, but in case of the statistic, it means really cabbage, because we love our sauerkraut. There is opposite system or opposite view of the production and importance from the point of the production. Now we can see a figure which looks which looks like very nice, nicely showing us actually very nicely development of consumption of vegetable per person per year in kilograms. From this point of view, we can see very clearly that already from 60s, the consumption in United States was higher than in Czech Republic, or that time Czechoslovakia. I use just this because Czech Republic as independent was established in 93. So we can see that the situation from this point of view is much better in US than here in Czech Republic. And if we will look on a bit wider perspective, we can see now some other countries I selected from Europe for some other comparisons. So we can have Italy as one of the very important consumer of vegetable, and the majority of the data are above 150 kilos. While on opposite side, we can see, let's say, Finland as an example of the northern countries, where for a very long time the consumption of vegetable was relatively neglected and on very small levels. However, what's the situation nowadays? You can see that all is going like to one hub, one very close area, which still means there are several tens of kilos of differences. But what happens and why? Decline in US, decline in Italy, and let's say stagnation in other countries, including Czech Republic. So what happened? It means there is, in spite of increased production of vegetable, in spite of better assortment offered in our supermarkets, there are some strong competitors we can see later on, which can have adverse effect on our healthy diet. So now we can have a few figures about the consumption of each species or important species of vegetable. For this figure, you can see a US situation where we have relatively equally distribution of consumption between onions, 9 kilos per year and person, same like tomato. And if I will combine these two type of lettuce or different type of lettuces, it's again about, let's say, 10% of 10 kilos of consumption. So these three vegetables makes about 30% of 30 kilos of total amount which is consumed in the US. And maybe this will be a bit more explanatory with ratios of the total consumption, which was in the year 2019 110 kilos. So those 9 vegetables displayed here makes nearly half of total consumption of vegetable. What is good in this? There is relatively several vegetables, and from some of them we can consider as very nutritious, like tomatoes in case of lycopene, or carotenoids, same like for carrot, and or lettuce and let's say leafy vegetable, important as a benefit for many vitamins of group A, B, or vitamin K. What is the situation in Czech Republic? I didn't translate fully this feature, which was issued by our statistic office of Czech Republic, but I think I'm sure that you can understand because of the pictures. So here there is there are different vegetables and their consumption per person per year, 11 kilos to 2.4 kilos. So altogether, the consumption here is 88 kilos. It is a bit higher than in official United Nations statistics. Why? Because it's including the household own production. We have still big portion of the households which are producing own vegetables, which are not going through statistics, official statistic within the market, but could be put to overall picture of vegetable consumption. On the bottom line, there are the amount of total production, total yields. What we can see here, if I will move a bit, we can see again with yellow numbers some ratios. Those ratios are relatively similar in some cases. We will see in a figure in the next slide the comparison to the Czech Republic. But what is definitely different is the comparison between the production side and consumption, as you can see here in those levels and pictures. As well as we can see that we have only 9 vegetables making 60% of total consumption. It means that in Czech Republic, the variation of different vegetables in our daily diet is relatively smaller. And it shows and actually corresponds to very stagnative and very conservative behavior of changing of our habits in case of what we are preparing for our lunches. So what we can see here, here we can see comparison of consumption ratios between different vegetables. While in Czech Republic, the higher percentage of consumption, 12%, makes onion, and 30% makes tomato, it's a bit different to the reality of the production. So in the US, there is much bigger production of tomato, but in our case, the production of, consumption of tomato was increasing very rapidly. Why? Because our customers in Czech Republic get used to have it as first vegetable which are looking for during every year or whole year shopping. They are also red. It means, and it's really working from the point of marketing, that there is, if they do not buy any other vegetables, they will go for tomatoes. Opposite situation is in case of lettuce. Lettuce consumption in the US is much higher than in the Czech Republic. And here we can see that this could have really stronger effect on diet. It means we are using still a lot of vegetables which are more processed than really fresh. However, they are bought fresh by final customers. So those 10% means quite a lot in intake of many vitamins, as I said some moment ago. Oppositely, cucumber consumption, and especially pickling cucumber, is #1 in area of the cucumber consumption, which is maybe nice from the point of the taste, as I have to say from my point of view, but unfortunately, from the point of the diet, there is nearly nothing inside. It means cucumbers do not bring much to diet from the point of any vitamins, even minerals. Better situation is in the case of cabbage, where we can see important source of many minerals and vitamins, including vitamin C. But this number actually is declining these years. And what we can see from the entire look on consumption of vegetable in Czech Republic, the decline from all vegetable species which demand for some preparation. What is, let's say, ready to eat, it's going up. What demands some cooking, preparation in the kitchen and so on, the people are just starting to release from their everyday diet. What is from the point of the health? World Health Organization recommends 400 grams of total daily intake for fruit and vegetables. Unfortunately, in Czech Republic, the situation is the mean intake is only about 240 grams per person, which means we are still just about 60%, but 57%, which is still far away of expected and needed amount. We can see the situation maybe more clearly here, where the consumption per capita is displayed on the world scale. And here we can see that the countries which meet dietary guidelines in Europe are located everywhere, just not in the center. I mean, like not in the Czech Republic, Slovak Republic, Hungary, and in some northern countries as well. While in the US, you can see you are more happy from the point of the statistics and actually from the point of consumption, which is above the guidelines. Just for a short idea, here is the situation in fruit intake. Again, the situation is good in US, but in the case of Europe, even in some other surrounding countries, there is still not sufficient intake of fruits as well. Well, now a few words about why the situation is as it is. It means why people still do not eat much of vegetable, because they have much more luxurious products which are much more sweet, much more tasty, and much more just at disposal from the shelves. So here you can see some statistic of development of diet or dietary composition of different groups. So I will just stop for a while in a fruit and vegetable sector, which you can see with this pink violet color, which stays within quite long period relatively same, while some others are growing rapidly up. Now just few comparisons. I use these scales to show the exact volume in certain years. So we can see here for oils and fat income or intake, sorry, this value for 80s is maybe just by 35% high nowadays, with intake of such parts of diet which we can't say as really healthy. What situation in vegetable? We compare the size here in 80s and size in the 2013. Nothing happened. The amount which is consumed in the US, it's practically the same. The situation in Czech, you can see here. It's not for a longer time because, as I explained, because of splitting or generation or establishing of Czech Republic in '93, we do not have such long queue now here. But these data show that we have also some movement. I can't say good movement because you can see now here. If we have certain level of consumption of fruit and vegetables in '95 here, nowadays is actually smaller, so it's getting worse. While in oil and fat intake, the situation is quite resembling the situation in the US. What I would like just mention, we are quite strong in alcoholic beverage, so this value is double than in Czech Republic, than in the US. And from the point of US, the US consumption or intake, daily intake of calories, it's somewhere here. We are not reaching this level, but I am sure that with such development as we can see here in oils or in sugar, we will reach higher levels very soon. However, or in spite of the situation that people are sitting in offices at most. From this chart, we can see some comparison how many times a week is taken vegetable as food source. In Czech Republic, we can see that at least a day, once a day, is this portion of 40%, while in many countries in European Union, it's much higher. What is quite interesting, if we will look, the Netherlands as the country which is exporting a lot of vegetable, such daily intake is a bit small, but who knows this? This is just statistics according to the behavior of the households. It's not a real counting of every spoon. And coming to the end, I would like to close with some example of benefits of a vegetable. So I have selected lettuce as source of many vitamins. Here you can see vitamins per 100 of grams. So vitamin C, 12, it is actually 12 milligrams. Lutein, zeaxanthin, carotene, it means carotenoid intake is about 6 milligrams. And let's say from group of vitamin B, you can see here some mentioned, and vitamin K 0.2 milligrams. However, these numbers could be somehow just flowing in the air without no relationship. Now in this slide, we can see much clearly what does it mean. I have selected several vegetables and mean consumption per day, which can be distributed according to the consumption data I showed you already. And here, what we can see here, 19 grams of carrot can bring already 134% of recommended daily allowance of carotene. Same like for lettuce with only 7 grams. All tomatoes can make about 50% of the dose. So already some of these several vegetables, which makes daily intake 100 grams, makes a triple of our dose. It is just computed data. We have to consider that there are some losses because of the cooking, because of the preparation of the food, and because of real intake in the human body. But still, these figures show us real importance of vegetable for our diet. In case of vitamins of the group B, they are not a good example here. Maybe others like parsley could be, leafy parsley could be much better example. But here for thiamine, you can see again, we can count already with reasonably good portion of income from those 4 or 5 vegetables. Similarly, in vitamin C, we can see with those 100 grams of vegetables, we can have intake which comes to, let's say, 40% of daily allowance. And again, vitamin K, 144% means only with those vegetables we can cover our demands. So in reality, it's really decision of everybody. If we'll focus on the diet, if we would like to somehow help own body to be more strong and to withstand in such a pandemic situation like nowadays, or in some other, because it's not the matter definitely of only COVID disease. So diet means really a lot. Even a lot of people do not think about it, but we have to understand, at least in our group of experts, that the food is the only source of appropriate diet we should intake every day. No pills can help us such regularly eating of fruit, vegetables, and other, let's say, healthy foods. So within this, I would like to thank you for your attention, and I'm happy for your question.
Great, thank you very much, Dr. Fakluda, for a very informative overview of vegetable consumption and the importance to our diet. Now, Jonathan, I believe there's a few questions that you will ask. Yes.
Yes. First question, Dr. Fakluda. Someone would like to know what is the type of lettuce that is commonly produced in the Czech Republic?
Excuse me, because I have some like noise reflection there. Can you repeat the question, please?
Yes.
Oh, it's gonna be, your computer speaker's on too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, one second.
Turn your, mute yours.
Okay, Dr. Fakluda, we would like to know what kind of lettuce is most commonly produced in the Czech Republic?
The most produced lettuce is head lettuce, so Lactuca sativa variety capitata, and leafy lettuce. Nowadays, we can see some enlargement of assortment. So let's say last 5 years, we can see coast lettuce or romaine type of lettuce as starting to be, especially for very early supply on the market. And the proportion of the iceberg lettuce is also growing constantly within, let's say, last decade. But still, the majority of the lettuce consumed is head lettuce, just standard head lettuce.
One more. Yes, there's another question. Of the cabbage that's produced in the Czech Republic, what's more prevalent, red or white?
Definitely white. White cabbage is predominant, maybe makes some 75 to 80% of total production because of bigger productivity. I mean the bigger biomass production, and because better conditions for fermentation. While red cabbage, even it's maybe more stronger in anthocyans, most of the cultivars are more sensitive to different abiotic or biotic stresses during the cultivation system.
We have one last question. Do you have any data on the amount of vegetables produced in gardens for local consumption, such as the size of the gardens or market gardens?
Excuse me, can you repeat just the beginning of the question?
Yes. Is there any data on the amount of vegetables produced in gardens for local consumption, be them, well, what the size of the gardens are or whether they're market gardens?
Okay. Official data are not confirmed. There is the situation that there is registered about 300,000 members of growing association of hobby gardeners, which means we can speak about roughly about 1/10 of the total population has in households they have their own production gardens for mostly for vegetable or fruits. So this could be a relatively higher portion, and if we can see the reality, or if I will consider the reality in a countryside, there is very rare that the people which are living mostly there in houses do not produce their own vegetables and fruits. So unfortunately, we do not have exact data, but there is considered, let's say, qualified expected that the production of households make about 1/4 of total production of commercial scale, which means we can speak about some 80,000 tons. So when I was speaking about nearly 300,000 tons of production by commercial farmers, 80,000 tons is not negligible amount. But definitely there are just few species grown on households levels, and again very popular like tomato or some easy way of cultivation like radish or carrots.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any other questions that someone would like to write in the chat box for Dr. Fakluda? Okay, Dr. Peak, I think we can move to the next speaker then.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Dr. Fakluda, for the very informative and interesting presentation. If we have a few minutes toward the end of our session, then we'll open that up for general question and answer as well. Okay, I will be giving the next presentation, and trying to make this full screen here so everyone can see. Yeah, my name is Dr. David Peak. I'm a professor of horticulture here at the Louisiana State University Agricultural Center in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. But I've had a chance to visit and work with many of our very nice colleagues, Lenice and Bruno as well, and we look forward to continuing that collaboration as as our travel will open up a little bit later this year. So I'm going to focus on one of our important vegetable crops here in the south central part of the United States, and especially in the state of Louisiana. That's the sweet potato, and some of the activities that we're involved in here, and how future research and training activities might be of benefit to faculty, staff, and students at Mendel University in terms of an exchange program, or maybe some short-term graduate student type training activities. As Dr. Fakluda said, vegetables are a very important part of our diet, and it's important to have a diversity of different horticultural products for proper health and nutrition, and as they say, we are what we eat. So the more fruits and vegetables we consume, the better our health generally will be. I'm going to focus on sweet potatoes and some of the research that we've been involved with, and some of the potential future collaborative activities that we can continue to enjoy together in the future in terms of research and training. It's not showing? Okay. Why is it not showing? Yeah. Okay, Jonathan had mentioned to me that the PowerPoint is not showing, so apologize for that. We're going to try to correct that. Okay. You want to go to the beginning?
Ask them if they can see it now.
We can see the presentation, but it's not in the presentation mode, so you'll want to play from the slide. There we go. We can see full screen now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. Apologize for the technical difficulties. So anyway, back to the talk on sweet potato composition and nutritional value, and some of the collaborative activity that we can continue to enjoy together between LSU and Mendel University. Sweet potatoes are a very important staple food crop throughout the world. They're the number 6th most important food crop on a worldwide basis. That's considering other crops like corn and rice and wheat and some of the major other cassavas, potatoes, etc. And sweet potatoes are consumed worldwide, not only as a staple food crop for calories, but also as a high-value export crop for increasing global markets, especially in North America, Europe, and some of the Asian countries as well. But it is a very rich, nutritious, high in calories and high in nutritional value, especially if it's an orange flesh sweet potato. And so that's the crop that we've been here at LSU in terms of horticulture. That's one of our more important individual crops, and it is our #1 vegetable crop in terms of production here in the state of Louisiana. Interestingly, over the last several decades, we've enjoyed an explosion in the expansion of the United States sweet potato industry. And it's one of the most important vegetable crops in terms of production and per capita consumption. Looking back about 20 years ago, we can see what has happened in the lower portion of the slide here. The year 2000, per capita consumption in pounds here in the United States, year 2000, about 4.2 pounds of annual sweet potato consumption per person per year. That's a little more than, well, a little less than 2 kilograms. But now we can see that has pretty much doubled over the last several decades. So really an explosive increase in sweet potato production and consumption here in the United States. As Dr. Fakluda had highlighted, many of the different vegetable crops in terms of consumption in the Czech Republic and over here in the United States as well. So we can see, where does sweet potatoes rank among the important fresh vegetables in terms of consumption here in the United States? It is within the top 10. It's actually number 8. One thing I will mention though, potatoes are never, they're in a class of their own. And Dr. Fakluda had mentioned the wide diversity of vegetables and consumption, and you can see on this slide here, but potatoes really, statistically, they're considered a class of their own. But absolutely, they are the #1 vegetable crop, without a doubt, in terms of per capita consumption here in the United States. And I would hesitate to guess that probably #1 vegetable in the Czech Republic as well, if we categorize them with all of the other vegetable crops. But for statistical purposes, FAO, USDA, they tend to keep potatoes separate. So that's why you haven't really heard much about potatoes. But they are #1. But sweet potatoes, very important vegetable, and increasingly so. Why might that be? Well, we're becoming more knowledgeable about the health and the nutritional aspect of sweet potatoes. We're also working on value-added product, convenient foods that folks can eat as snacks, can enjoy in different formulations, easy to prepare. So it's one of the more versatile vegetables in terms of being able to prepare and eat it in many, many different forms, snack foods especially. And we're actively involved here at LSU in a number of different research programs in terms of adding value, characterizing the nutritional value of sweet potatoes to make them more competitive, as it is our #1 vegetable here in the state of Louisiana. And we do have to be responsible for supporting our horticulture industry in the state, and that much of that is involved in a research activity program, from breeding to pathology, crop production, post-harvest marketing, food science, etc., for sweet potatoes. The sweet potato also is expanding in terms of production and consumption worldwide. It's becoming increasingly popular in Western Europe, and now over into Central and even Eastern Europe. And I know I've had a chance to visit all of the EU countries and the Czech Republic many times, and it's very interesting to see now we have sweet potatoes available in some of our mainstream supermarkets, Metros, Tesco, some of the larger ones in Prague and Linz and Brno and some of the other big cities that will have sweet potatoes on a year-round basis. Most of those are imported, but that is a crop that in the southern part of the Czech Republic, in sandy soils, light textured soils, actually would do very well, as the market is becoming more familiar with the wide diversity of rich, nutritious sweet potato products. We also are a major exporter of sweet potatoes here in the United States. In fact, that is increasing. The primary export markets for sweet potatoes are Canada, Western Europe, and a little bit now down to Latin America, but primarily Europe and Canada would be our major export markets, and that is growing, especially the orange-fleshed sweet potato, and look for that to continue, especially as European consumers become more familiar with how to prepare a sweet potato, because it has not been a traditional part of the European diet, but now it's becoming a mainstream vegetable, mostly in the Western European countries of the United Kingdom, the Netherlands, Germany, France, Belgium, Holland, etc., but increasingly more so in Central and Eastern Europe as well. A few years ago, I also had a chance to do a little bit of work over in Russia, and they're starting to become more familiar and more of a consumer of sweet potatoes in the Russian Federation market as well. So one thing that we do a lot here is looking at different research activities related to the sweet potato that we would like to continue that, and hopefully some colleagues, faculty, staff, and students in the Czech Republic might find this of interest. We're quite well set up for a wide diversity of analytical type measurements here, where we can characterize the nutritional value of a number of our different fruit and vegetable products, of course, including sweet potatoes. We host a number of visiting professors, students, and of course have our own, that we're always looking to try to become more knowledgeable about the positive attributes of sweet potatoes and use that for a marketing advantage. If we can quantify the positive benefits that are in a sweet potato, like carotene and the vitamins and fiber and a few of these other components, then that becomes a very important marketing tool as consumers worldwide are becoming more cognizant of the importance of a healthy diet, and especially over the last year with the coronavirus pandemic, very much the consumption of vegetables and fruit have increased as folks believe that they're related to a little bit more resistance to some of these debilitating diseases. So we're very well set up for looking at different analytical type methodologies, training, technical assistance, and also new value-added food developments. Recent visiting professor that we hosted here, she's the head of the food science department at Hanoi, at Vietnam National University up in Hanoi. We're looking at some different value-added smoothie formulations for some of our sweet potatoes that we grow here, whether they're orange fleshed, white fleshed, and even purple fleshed. And that is an ongoing project. Some of the possible food quality research and laboratory analysis training that might be of benefit to folks in Litnice, in Mendel University, with collaborative activity, future collaborative activity, would be a number of laboratory type of training methodologies on composition and nutritional attributes, things like high performance liquid chromatography, where we can characterize individual sugars that are so important in sweet potatoes. Certain types of sugars, like reducing sugars, are correlated with darker colored French fries, which is a marketing defect. So we're trying to understand how we can regulate post-harvest environments and processing technologies to favor positive nutritional aspects of sweet potatoes and minimize some of the negative aspects of discoloration and maybe some of the other off-flavor type aspects that may occur under the wrong post-harvest and processing conditions. So very well set up. Anybody that's interested in learning technology on different flavor components, vitamins, some of your antioxidants, phenolic acids, carotenoids, etc. It's very important that we understand what the products are made out of, and again, and utilizing that information then to promote the positive, healthy aspects of sweet potatoes and or other products that we're trying to develop and strengthen for our own domestic industry. Another aspect that we're quite actively involved in here is the effect of different post-harvest conditions on changing flavor and quality of sweet potatoes. Depending on the temperature and the gaseous atmosphere, oxygen and CO2 concentration, we can manipulate the flavor and in some cases the nutritional quality of sweet potatoes. So we're looking at different oxygen and CO2 regimes, temperatures, to favor maybe one or more particular compositional analytes, like maybe higher sugars or higher phenolic acids, higher antioxidants, again, as that might be then used for a marketing advantage. So sweet potatoes can be prepared in many, many different formulations, and there's just so many interesting, diverse aspects of the physiology and the food science of sweet potato. It becomes one of our most important learning type vegetables that we're involved here, and in addition to a commercially significant vegetable as our leading vegetable crop here in the state of Louisiana. Not to bore you too much, but the sweet potatoes are primarily, for many cases, they're consumed for their sweetness, for their rich flavor and their natural sweetness. So we're trying to understand how we can optimize the flavor profile of sweet potatoes, sugar content, so that consumers will have a pleasant eating experience and will come back and want to consume sweet potatoes time after time again. But sweet potato is not a static crop. It can be stored for over a year, believe it or not. In fact, I've even stored some for 2 years, and they actually taste quite good after 2 years. But we don't encourage that. We want folks to eat sweet potatoes frequently and not store them for too long a period of time. But under different temperature conditions and different times, it's just amazing how significant the flavor profile, in this case, the individual sugar content of sweet potatoes can change. So if we're interested in selling maybe like a fresh cut sweet potato that we might use for a convenience food, and we really want that to taste sweet, we can actually store that thing at a fairly low temperature at 7 degrees centigrade. We can really enhance the sweetness during a short period of time if that's our intended goal. Now, if we want to make like a French fry or a chip out of a sweet potato, we actually would want to minimize the reducing sugar content, namely fructose and glucose, because they're associated with more browning reaction, more darkening of the fries and the chips, which consumers find that to be somewhat negative. So it's a very interesting crop. We have a lot of research that's going on here in horticulture, and we are looking forward to inviting many of you over here again when the travel kind of opens up again, and I know many of us have had a chance to collaborate with you in Lednice and visit on your beautiful campus, and we certainly look forward to that to continue again. So we've had a very strong and productive relationship over the last 7 years. As Jonathan mentioned, I've been involved in this since the very start, and a lot of you have come here, and again, we've had the chance, many of our faculty and students have really benefited greatly by our visits to Lednice and Brno, and look forward to that to continue. And and for those of you that were involved from the beginning, a number of us are still here, and some of us aren't, moved on, but we're looking forward again. Once the coronavirus pandemic lifts a little bit, we can travel to really further developing a strong collaborative research and training activities, not only in horticulture, but other areas as well. Okay, well, I will then entertain questions. Jonathan, do we have any additional questions here?
Okay, 1 second. Okay, there have been no questions listed so far, Dr. Pika, and given our time, we might want to leave that till the end of the session, so it might be a good time for the next presentation.
Great. Okay, well, thank you, Jonathan, and thank you, everyone, for your attention. Again, if we have a little time at the end, we'll open it up for general question and answer. Okay, so the next, I'd like to introduce our next speaker. Our next speaker will be Dr. Carl Motzenbacher. Dr. Motzenbacher is a veteran professor here at Louisiana State University. He is involved in a number of different activities, but over the last some years, he's focused more on the extension aspect of vegetables, and where he focuses most of his energy. Dr. Motzenbacher is involved in 3 very diverse and extensive extension programs. He's the executive director of the Louisiana Farm to School program, which he'll be talking about. He's the co-state lead for the Vegetable Sustainable Agriculture Research and Education program, and also the principal investigator for Grow Louisiana Beginning Farmer Training Program on Sustainable Horticulture and business activities. Dr. Motzenbacher also teaches organic gardening here at LSU and local food systems, and also sustainable agriculture, and a third course in principles and practices of olericulture. Dr. Motzenbacher has widely traveled, spent a lot of time overseas, is actively involved in a study abroad program to Thailand, the beautiful Southeastern Asia nation of Thailand, that a number of our students have taken advantage of. So without further ado, Dr. Motzenbacher will be giving a talk on the Farm to School Local Food Systems program here in Louisiana. Carl, please.
Good morning, everyone, and good afternoon to those across the pond. Can everybody hear me and see my slides? So we're all
Yes.
set, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a pleasure for me to speak today about one of our programs, Farm to School and Local Food Systems. And I appreciate Robert kind of setting the stage for the importance of fruits and vegetables in our diet, people learning how to grow their own food, consuming food, because that is really what a lot of this effort that we're doing here within Louisiana encompasses. I would like to acknowledge the Farm to School team. We have a wonderful group of people working, and I would say team in a true effort. And I do acknowledge all their hard work. I'm the team lead, and it's nice to have wonderful people working together. So I just wanted to preface this, that the Farm to School program started by a resolution from the legislature here in Louisiana. And we have an agreement with the Department of Education with administrative funds to conduct this work in the state, and without that we would not be able to do this. This is actually USDA funding that goes through the Department of Education. And I just wanted to preface a little bit more about what the program is, and I'm just going to go through these kind of briefly, just what some of the goals of the program are in general. So you can see the first I have listed here is train producers. We use Market Maker, the Market Maker platform. So this is something important, obviously, as part of the local food system, is the production of local food, and then how do we get this into different marketing venues, including schools and other institutions, and what are the regulations that are required. And our Farm to School Handbook and resources, we've really loaded up our website with a lot of resources all around the three components of Farm to School, which I'll mention. We also do a lot of work, and Crystal Bessie is the main person behind, working with school nutrition personnel on sourcing local. How do you find local food? How do you utilize the food? And then just in general, support for Farm to School programs around the state, and best practices to work with teachers and school districts on implementing that. Another aspect is our annual Farm to School conference. We have an annual conference that's in the fall, and we will, this past fall we had an online conference, and we will have a component of that. So if anybody, even in European continent, can participate with us. And then, of course, providing access and communication, we actually have like 2 sites currently to avail all our stakeholders of trainings, our materials, technical assistance. So I just wanted to mention, to show you our Farm to School conference. With this particular agreement, we started in 2017. It's always in the fall during National Farm to School Month. And we'll have another conference this coming fall. One of the main things I like to stress is Farm to School is about sourcing locally. It's about supporting a local food system, fresh product being brought into cafeterias and other institutions. It could be frozen, or it could be fresh cut materials, minimally processed. So looking at local and regional food systems. And there are some issues with that in terms of the school system and what's required. And we are not just looking at fruits and vegetables. Our program started out in promoting the use of fruits and vegetables and growing of fruits and vegetables, but it has been expanding to other commodities that are required in schools. And I just wanted to put this slide up. I'm not going to go through it very much, but this is one of my passions, is for children to know how to grow food and eat healthy. And this is one of the major aspects of Farm to School. And there is research on this. I don't do the research myself, but there is a lot of benefits for Farm to School in terms of students and their behavior. And the main thing that I see working in some schools is when children grow food in gardens, they will consume it, and it really is a good benefit. So it's all about food literacy, it's about education and curriculum, and it is an economic driver. And this is one of the things that we're going to be doing some studies in our next agreement, looking at the economic benefits of local food systems. Increased employment, increased expanding of the local food sector. And there's a lot of studies out there, for every dollar invested in Farm to School, there's an additional 60 cents to over $2 generated in local economic activity. And that is something really significant, increasing jobs, self-reliance. So this is one of the things that for me is a really important aspect of this. So you might ask, what are the core elements of Farm to School? What is Farm to School? And so we split this into three. This is actually a slide from the National Farm to School Network, and this is what USDA considers the three legs of Farm to School. And I have them broken out here. So procurement, bringing local food into schools, in school meals, as snacks, or as a taste test in schools. And of course, the second aspect is education, so promoting and delivering curriculum, opportunities for agriculture, food, health, nutrition, education. And then the third, I think a lot of us think of school gardens primarily when we think about farm to school. So how can we, have hands-on learning at schools? How do we promote that? And here in this state, we have master gardeners. There's a lot of volunteers doing work in schools. There's a lot of teachers. So there's a lot of activity all over the country in terms of gardens and the importance of that. And one of the things we try to stress is that Farm to School programs depends on the local situation and what the needs and what the resources are. And some of the examples would be just to purchase local produce, bring local food in as a taste test in a school setting, in the classroom, which would be one of the simplest. Teaching classroom lessons about local agriculture, planting a school garden, field trips to farms, and that, this whole agro-tourism realm is another aspect of Farm to School. And then, as I mentioned, the simplest would be taste tests. So one of our signature programs is Harvest of the Month. We started out developing these in 2016, and we are going through them. And basically, this is one local item highlighted each month in the school. So this could be purchased, usually it's purchased through the schools, could be going into the cafeteria, could be as a school meal, or it could be a taste test. And with this, we have developed standardized cafeteria recipes and monthly educational materials. You can see examples of our posters. So we also have a protein. Shrimp is one of our Harvest of the Months, and you see citrus and broccoli. And we have a whole host of materials that we have developed. If you go to our website, everything is downloadable. So we have these posters. You can see an example of the eggplant poster. We have a school guide for local food purchasing, a taste test guide. On the top right, you can see the compendium of activities. There's a what's in season seasonality chart. Another fairly detailed guide is a compendium of activities and lessons tied to the state standards for each Harvest of the Month item. And there's like checklists for producers selling to schools. So how do you sell to a school? There's a checklist for the school nutrition director. How do you source locally from local farmers? And then in terms of school nutrition, there's a menu analysis worksheet, a local food purchasing assessment. So we have all these resources that are available for anybody who's interested in downloading them. And just some metrics on, so we keep track of a lot of our contacts, our program. And so with this current agreement, the Louisiana Harvest of the Month program started in the 2018-2019 school year. And we had initially about 228 schools represented. And as of this past year, we had 425 sites. So we can see we're seeing a definite expansion in Louisiana Harvest of the Month. And I look at this program as like our first really signature program for the Louisiana Farm to School program. And we have had some success stories from our first pilot, at 3 different schools around the state, looking at introduction of local food in. And one of the things that we still see here is, and David had mentioned sweet potatoes and the importance of sweet potatoes. Well, the school system here in East Baton Rouge Parish went from using canned sweet potatoes to baked sweet potatoes in all of their schools. And this is still continuing. Another example is strawberries as a Harvest of the Month item and sourcing locally. We've had some examples of that also. So another program we started recently is Seeds to Success. We're really pleased to have this. This is a website with lesson plans and growing guides. And the nice thing about the lesson plans is they're all linked to the state curriculum standards. So this really allows teachers to use this curriculum. And we started out with 16 fruits and vegetables, and we're slowly expanding that. So there's these fruits and vegetables. We have the guides, but we also give the information on how to utilize them in a school garden. And all of this is organized by grade level. And so our team has really worked diligently on this. And some of the metrics of this, so part of Seeds to Success was to have these windowsill kits. So you can see on the top right, a windowsill greenhouse kit. We had an overwhelming response to this. We had a delay due to COVID, but this spring, literally as we speak, we're working on sending these out to at least, we have over 1,000 requests for this. The next stage is to also do earth boxes to a number of the schools around the state with growing guides and seed. So kind of introducing the concept of growing on campus, and this is all linked to curriculum and using lessons in the classroom. Another aspect I wanted to briefly mention is Louisiana Market Maker. So this is an online database, so a way for producers and buyers, so school nutrition directors, to find local farmers and local product to bring into the schools. So you can see that since 2017, we've had almost 200 new registrations around the state. So this is one of the aspects that we have for our farm to school program, and we maintain this. Another interesting project, so Johanna with our project back in April worked on a Louisiana farm food map and directory over COVID-19. We had an overwhelming response. You can see we had over 78,000 views. This is still functioning. It's on the LDAF website. So we have over 160 small and medium-sized farms and businesses on here. So those that are looking for local food can go in and see where they can source local fruits and vegetables and other products. And then as a follow-up to this, a survey was conducted this past fall, and I'm not going to go into the details, but you can see some of the preliminary data for this. We had over 138 farmer responses. So the question was, you know, how did the farmers respond? Were things better for them during COVID-19? How did they adapt? And so there's really some really good information there on the response locally with farmers to the COVID-19 pandemic. So I list here a number of our resources. So on the top, Louisiana Farm to School and Harvest of the Month, that's on the AgCenter website. We also, as I mentioned, we have a Seeds to Success website with seeds to grow, seeds to know, seeds to sow, and then career paths and resources. And then on the bottom, you can see some other resources nationally. So we're part of a network. There's the National Farm to School Network. We're really pleased to be able to do this work, and I invite anybody, you know, in state and in other states and in the Czech Republic that are interested in doing similar work or maybe adapting some of this. I think there's a great opportunity for this, and I welcome any discussion concerning this. I would like to mention I didn't list all our partners because I know Judy's going to be speaking. Judy has done a lot of work for us. There's a lot of unnamed people that we also work with within the LSU AgCenter. With that, I don't know if we have any time for questions.
Thank you very much, Carl. Jonathan, any questions?
Yes. Okay. Have there been any changes in demand for fruit, vegetables, home garden seeds that you know of during COVID-19? If I'm not mistaken, you already answered that due to the survey. Is that correct, Carl?
Yes, I haven't. Yeah, there is definitely an increase in demand nationally. I've seen some statistics, but it is a phenomenal increase just by trying to buy seed. It is difficult to actually buy seed in a timely manner in the United States. And there is more and more people that are wanting to plant gardens, grow their own food. So it's an interesting movement that we are seeing here.
We have another question. Have you assessed interest among farmers about expanding beyond supplying products to local schools to also include supplying local community retail settings that might have a difficult time securing affordable produce?
So the last, having a difficult time with what?
Securing affordable produce.
Yeah, so with us, we work with farmers who market in many different settings, many different farmers markets, schools. They've all had to adapt. So for instance, we work with a small and medium scale farmers with our beginning farmer training program. Many of their markets, restaurants abruptly closed last year. So they had to adapt and change. So I don't know actually what the affordability of product, I don't really know what that means. I guess would be the, if anybody could clarify that. You know, it's a free market system. Most of the farmers that I work with personally, they go to direct marketing outlets where there's in general a higher price, a premium price.
All right, one of our colleagues over at Mendel is very interested in seeing if they can adapt such a program, and they want to know if the web pages are freely accessible.
Yes, they are definitely freely accessible. The Seeds to Success, and we have downloadable materials. If they want hard copies, we can send them hard copies of things too. So if they would send me an email, and I can make sure that they get all the information that they need.
Okay, I will send the interested party your email address, Carl.
Very good, thank you.
We do have a holdover question from Dr. Pika's presentation. Okay, Dr. Pika, do you see any new opportunities for sweet potato in the Czech market? And are there any joint plans for joint research with Mendel?
Absolutely. The European market is growing significantly in consumption of sweet potatoes, and that's only going to continue, whether it's Western Europe, Central or Eastern Europe, both in fresh form and also value-added form. It's a very lucrative vegetable. There's increasing production now in Spain and Portugal, Italy as well, but absolutely as we're becoming more cognizant of supporting local growers, supporting Czech sweet potato growers would be something that there would be a demand for. So absolutely, there will be increasing demand and increasing opportunities to commercially produce sweet potatoes for the local and or regional European market in the Czech Republic. As far as opportunities, we are involved in collaborative activities, and we continue to welcome all types of collaborative activity in terms of production, post-harvest, food science, marketing, disease control, insect control, and absolutely we will continue that as our travel situation becomes more feasible hopefully in the near future. Okay, well, I think without further ado, we'll go ahead and continue the program. Our next speaker will be Dr. Kiki Fontenot. Dr. Fontenot is an associate professor here at the LSU Agricultural Center. She is the state vegetable extension specialist for the LSU AgCenter. She has multiple responsibilities, research, teaching, and also outreach and extension. Her program includes vegetable field trials to promote practical growing, recommendations to our commercial vegetable growers here in Louisiana, along with hobby gardeners and the school systems as well. She does work very closely with schools throughout the state to construct and promote school garden programs. Dr. Fontenot also teaches Agronomy 1001. She also serves as the secretary of the Louisiana Fruit and Vegetable Growers Association, and has also authored a book entitled Louisiana Urban Gardener, A Beginner's Guide to Growing Herbs and Vegetables. So without further ado, Dr. Fontenot is going to give a talk entitled The Role of the University in Vegetable Production Trials and Bringing This Information to Commercial Producers and Students.
Thank you, Dr. Pika. Can everyone see my screen before we start in full presentation?
Yeah,
okay, perfect. All right, great. So what I'm going to start with first is a little bit of our current research that we've been doing here. And when I say research, I really mean a lot of applied field research. So my work isn't in a laboratory like Dr. Pika's. I'm more out in the field looking at yields, marketability of different vegetable crops, production practices. I'm going to show y'all a few variety trials here, but we do some herbicide work, we do fertilizer trials, and we look at different row spacings and just modifying production practices to see if we can get better results for our growers and then give that information to our growers. So right here, you're seeing one of our recent beet trials. This occurred during COVID. So this is actually my backyard, you guys who are looking at this, because when we first started this trial, we weren't sure if we could get onto extension stations safely or if LSU was going to allow us to do that. So this was one that we had to get in the ground because a lot of our trials are not just for Louisiana growers. So some of our trials, such as this beet trial, are part of all of the Southeastern region. So there's many universities within the Southeastern portion of the United States. We get together annually and we usually do joint variety trials, especially on lesser consumed crops such as beets. As Dr. Fakluda was saying, tomatoes are our #1 crop here in the United States. And we are always doing tomato trials. This year we'll have 2 tomato variety trials going on. But when it comes to the minor crops, individual universities don't always have funds to do that. So we get together, share seed, and you can see here these beets were replicated 4 times in this setting, and it was not just replicated 4 times in my yard, but it was also across the southeastern portion of the United States. So I'm going to show y'all just a little bit of data just to kind of give you an idea of what we're looking for when we're doing these trials. Namely, we want to look at germination rates and explain those to our growers and make sure that they know which ones do best in the field. And you can see avalanche and early wonder tall top were two of the better. This was in a very thick clay soil, so a lot of the germination wasn't as expected as we would have liked. We also look at marketable counts. So we're using USDA guidelines to determine marketability, in this case, 1.5 inches or greater in diameter, not a lot of insect marks, no pithing, no environmental damage to tops or roots, things of that nature. So you can see again, avalanche and early wonder statistically look pretty good. And we can definitely rule out beets that we do not want our growers growing, Salandra and Boulder, for instance. So that helps them out sometimes. When we're looking at these different beets, we're not just looking at overall yields, we're looking at color, making sure we give them a range of options. As you see this rainbow of beets displayed here in the yard, that's attractive to buyers at farmers market stands. So we don't want to just recommend a purple or a red beet. We'd like to recommend one of the orange beets as well. And when we look at our orange beets, we knew that Golden Detroit statistically far out yielded Boulder and Touchstone Gold in terms of marketable weight and marketable number of roots that came out of those plots. So that would be the golden beet that we would recommend just based off of that first season of data. Now this whole trial was replicated again in all of the states this fall. Unfortunately, the freeze knocked down all of our tops and they're just now growing back up out of the ground. So hopefully we will still get data out of the fall trial of this. Similarly, we looked at bell peppers this year, or this spring and summer, and we looked at 6 different varieties. And the reason why we were looking at most of these varieties is because of this problem right here. It's common in the southeastern portion of the United States, very, very common in home gardens and commercial production alike here in 2018 and 2019. This is bacterial leaf speck and bacterial leaf spot. They're very similar. But usually you get these round tan holes, the centers fall out, and the true characteristic sign of having this bacteria disease in your garden is when you touch or you walk by the bell pepper plants, the leaves simply just fall off straight from the petiole. You can barely touch the plant and all the leaves will fall off, which is terrible, right? Because it reduces photosynthesis, which is ultimately going to affect yield. So we wanted to look at some resistant varieties. And again, without going into too much detail because of the time limits of this talk today, when we're looking at these different resistant varieties, we can see that Turnpike far out yielded the rest of the varieties for us here in Louisiana. Now, this trial was replicated at a research station in the southern portion of Louisiana at Burden Research Station right near campus. And it was also replicated at the Hill Farm, which is in the northern portion of the state. So we had 60 pepper plants of each variety, both in the southern portion of the state and the northern portion of the state. And we looked at yields over 6 harvest periods, and we were just looking at initial yield on this. What's interesting to me is Turnpike produced very similarly to Aristotle peppers. Aristotle peppers are one of the more well-known peppers among our commercial producers. They're tomato spotted wilt virus resistant. They are not bacterial leaf spot or bacterial leaf speck resistant. We didn't have those in our trial this year, but we had them in an adjacent garden in the southern location. And when we compared yields, we saw that Turnpike far outweighed the yields of the Aristotle, which makes me really excited because when you go out and you get this kind of information and you can look at the peppers in the field, you can say, I have something comparable to what you're already growing in your field. So we are replicating this trial again in the spring of 2021. Here you can see some of the pictures of the peppers that we got out of our trial. We like to show our bell peppers. This might look unsanitary to many of you. I promise that hat was never worn by anyone. And whoever ate those peppers washed them first. So this is not a food safety talk by any means. But we like to show it because you know, when you're taking pictures of produce, you can have a ruler or a pen, you know, a ballpoint pen or something next to it to give an idea of size, people here in the US like big 4-lobed blocky peppers. They want to cut them in half, and especially in Louisiana, they want to stuff them with rice dressing and sausage and beef and things of that nature. So everyone's looking for a USDA #1 big blocky bell pepper. And when we put them in ball caps, you can really show to anyone, whether you're a commercial producer or just, someone going like a home gardener at the grocery store, or, a student here at LSU campus, they can imagine that size of that bell pepper very easily by doing that. So Turnpike is the one in the bottom center here. Gorgeous, gorgeous peppers, you guys. What I'm excited about is this seed was donated to us last year from Simonis. Simonis is the major vegetable company under the Bayer name, and they were very happy with our reports, and they have made efforts to send us seed again this year for the same trial, and we are now working on a partnership to develop more variety trials of some of their seed. So that's good for our university and maybe potentially for Mendel too, that we could look at or send some seed to you guys for y'all to look at and grow out there as well. I know in the past we've had students here. Dr. Pika hosted Lucy Petrovic, and wonderful student. After she graduated from Mendel University, she went and worked for Morova Seed, and I was able to visit her there, and Morova Seed donated seeds of lettuce, kale, and tomatoes to us, which we included in our vegetable variety trials here at LSU, and then we were able to recommend some of those seeds to some of our growers here, especially the ODAT tomato. That one stood out to us. It was a nice orange cherry type tomato. So how is this information extended? The purpose of this talk is not to so much show you the data, but tell you about how do we get it out to the growers. So each year, that same group of people that I was telling you about that do a lot of these joint trials, we have a book. It's called the Southeastern U.S. Vegetable Crop Handbook. It's updated each year with the varieties that we recommend, with production practices, with information on insecticides, fungicides, herbicides that you can legally spray on your vegetable crops and how to apply those in a safe manner. And so we make sure that we get this vegetable book out to all of our farmers across the state. We do that through giving it to extension agents. We have our Vegetable Producers Association. We mail the books to people who are members of that. And then as we go around doing farm visits, which is very common here for us, our farmers reach out to the university quite a bit when they have problems, or even when things are going well, that they want us to come out and look. And so when we make those visits, we usually bring the books if we know they haven't received it by mail yet. Just as an example, I have a picture of Brother and Janelle Glazier in the bottom left corner there. They're a very well-known farming family here in the Baton Rouge area. They retired from the farmer's market, but they still sell outside of their farm. They have a stand right at their farm that they open up every spring and sell from there. And just yesterday, I was at their house doing a normal farm visit, and she wanted me to look at all of her tomatoes in the greenhouse, because their tomatoes, you guys, we plant March 15th here. Their tomatoes are green and about a pound each right now. They're 2 weeks out from selling their tomatoes, and everybody else is just planting them. But Janelle had me go and look at all her transplants as well. And I noticed that she had turnpike peppers in there. And I said, "Oh, Janelle, I'm so happy that you have these turnpikes." And she said, "Well, I've never tried them before. They just had a good description in the magazine." And you guys know her 2 peppers that she had chosen were turnpike bell peppers and Aristotle's, the same 2 I was telling you about. She knew Aristotle was a standby, and she had just, luck has had it, because I hadn't released that information yet, chose turnpike, and I was able to reassure her that that was a very good choice that she made. So it's nice when you do these trials to extend that information out to the farmers. But like I said, it's not just variety trials that we do. We've been looking at biodegradable mulches. Here in Louisiana, we do not have a plastic recycling program in the state. So when the farmers use plastic mulch to reduce weeds, maintain soil moisture, etc., they usually throw it in the woods, burn it, put it in the landfill. There's not really a good recycling program here. So we were looking at different biodegradable mulches and which worked well, which lasted throughout the season, but then degraded, so we didn't have that extra labor cost or landfill cost associated with it. I'm not going to go through the details of that study or a few of these other ones, but I just wanted to give you a variety of what we do. This was another trial that we've completed just recently in the spring and fall season here, squash out hunger trials. So these are winter squash. We did a variety trial of about 10 different winter squash. This was a multi-state trial again. This one was not just in the southeast portion of the United States. This also extended into the southwestern portion of the United States as well. And what the lead PIs are looking at is what kind of crops can we grow in our state that then would be good for donation to food banks, because food banks don't always have a good turnaround time. They don't always have refrigeration space to hold fresh produce. But if we can grow things like winter squash that don't need to be refrigerated, and if they can keep it for more than 1, 2 weeks, even a month, 2, 3, 4 months or more, that's what we were looking at. So in this one, we were looking at the field data, the yields, the marketability of the squash, but then we also included Dr. Pika and we looked at storage life of these squash. So we kept them for about 6 months in storage. We weighed them each month for fresh weight. And then Dr. Pika looked at the various sugars in the fruit and, you know, if there was a flavor difference in the fruit as well. So maybe we can correlate, you know, the best yielding and the best tasting and the one that lasts the longest in storage. Another trial that I have with Dr. Pika are the Southern High Bush blueberry trials. Dr. Heather Kirk Ballard is part of this one as well. And these are some blueberries in Louisiana, to give you guys an example who are not from Louisiana, are typically harvested May through early July in Louisiana. Using these Southern High Bush blueberries instead of our typical rabbit eye blueberries, we're looking at, last year was our first harvest. We harvested in March versus May. This year we harvested in February versus May. Now this year we also had a major freeze event, so we did lose some of the fruit, but we were able to cover the shrubs and we still have an amazing amount of flowers out there, and I think our yields will be similar to last year. But what I like about this trial is we're looking at how can we get our producers to come to the market earlier, because if you come to the market earlier, you command the price, right? So if we don't have to rely on imported blueberries earlier in the season, our producers can get a higher price, and we can continue to eat blueberries grown in Louisiana by, you know, planting Southern High Bush types and rabbit eye types at our farms. So we're looking at the various varieties, their yields, again, their sugar content, and their flavor profiles throughout the season. Here's another trial that we worked on recently, and this one was a really fun one. Sometimes it's not the farmer who calls you in the extension service, sometimes it's the chef. So if you guys have been or have ever had the opportunity to visit New Orleans, you know that the one thing Louisiana boasts is our food, right? And how well we cook, and yes, how robust we are as people. We all weigh a little more as well. So Chef Dickie Brennan owns a number of very famous restaurants down in New Orleans, and he called the AgCenter looking for the Creole tomato, which is like the Loch Ness monster of tomatoes, if you guys know what I mean. It's this, everyone has a different idea of what Creole should look like, taste like, how tall the plant should be, etc. LSU did release a variety called Creole in 1969, but none of the farmers recognize it as the Creole tomato. So these Creole tomatoes originally were grown in 2 parishes in the southern portion of Louisiana. So what we did was we set up a trial of different varieties of tomatoes with good flavor profiles. We put them in the good soil section on Matt Renatz's farm, which you see right there. So those are our tomatoes growing at his farm. And we looked not so much in detail as yield and that kind of thing, but overall plant growth. And then we invited Dickie and one of his chefs and his wife out to the farm, and they got to harvest the produce out there. They got to learn what it's like to grow the tomatoes and appreciate where their food comes from. And then we brought it back to one of his restaurants, and many of his chefs were there, and we cut them up and everyone did a taste test, and he decided which tomato he liked the best. And now he and Matt Renatza have a nice relationship, and now he purchases tomatoes from this farmer. So in this case, it wasn't so much about the data we collected, it was about the relationship that we built between the restaurant and the producer. So Matt was really excited about that. So in all these different trials that I just showed you, how is this information extended to the public, to the home gardener, to the professional grower, and to students here on campus? Well, we have a lot of in-person field days. We like to do that at least once a year, have a fruit and vegetable field day. This year, because of COVID, we had to move to more online videos. So you can see up at the top, we did a lot of videos on our blueberries. We had a whole field day on blackberries that we did virtually. So the entire field day was recorded and put online. We do agent trainings. So we host agents in person, we host agents virtually. We give the data to our agents, the agents then give that to the master gardeners and to the home gardeners in their parishes. We have a TV program called This Week in Louisiana Agriculture. We try to have fruits and vegetables highlighted on it as much as possible. They prefer row crops, honestly. They do a lot of soybean and rice talks, but we try to, sneak vegetables in there every now and then. We bring this data to master gardeners, to garden shows throughout the state. And what I really like about this for the students from the college level is none of the trials that I showed you are any of my grad students' projects. These are all extra trials. So they all have their own project, but as a requirement to get their assistantship provided to them, they have to help us conduct these other trials as well. So you don't come out of the university only knowing about tomatoes or only knowing about hemp or pineapple or whatever. You get to know about the other crops as well. Additionally, we have a lot of high school science fair students who contact us to help them. So that biodegradable mulch trial, we had one high school student from a local high school help us with that trial. She presented the data with her. She had a little different section of the data that she presented, and she won first place overall in the environmental science category for that. So I thought that was really nice. Now she's going on to nationals, and she's going to compete at the national level with this project for her science fair. So it's really nice. Hopefully, Isabel Bacchus will become a future horticulture student at LSU. And it's silly, but it's also a great recruitment tool. One of my my graduate students that I just graduated, Celine Richard, I met her when she was in high school, and I actually did 2 science fair projects with her. And now she's graduating from LSU with a master's in horticulture. So it's a very nice way to encourage young students that there are other jobs out there besides being a teacher, a nurse, and a lawyer, right? Or a doctor. That there's a wide range of agriculture-based opportunities for them. And of course, this is all through the help of lovely graduate students and county agents. The 3 in the top right corner helped me with the North Louisiana pepper trial. So does anyone have any questions?
I don't see so many questions, so much as comments by Dr. Fakluda.
Okay.
Okay, he noticed that blueberries and other berries are now a hot topic for greenhouse production in Central Europe. And that in the last 3 years, there's been an increase by 3 times of the market share of fruits with increased sugar content, particularly tomatoes.
Mm-hmm. I'd have to agree with that. We see very much an increase in the sweeter of the vegetable crops versus, the more hardy, so we're not seeing increases in beets, turnips, that kind of thing, but we are seeing increases in watermelon, blueberries, things of that nature. The sweetness value is really big. And I didn't show, Dr. Pika had a beautiful slide of all the posts or of all the different products of sweet potatoes, but I would say the same, Dr. Fakluda, when you look at blueberry crops, it's not just fresh consumption, but it's frozen, it's in pancakes, it's in smoothies, it's in ice creams. People really enjoy that flavor profile. And I think that this would be a wonderful project, the blueberry aspect that we could, share together with students, and students are more than welcome from Mendel University to come here to LSU and participate in any of these trials with us. And hopefully, you'll get a research publication out of it as well. So we welcome you guys, we really do, to LSU.
And if I may add, one of the differences here between the agriculture researchers and extension folks in the United States and the Czech Republic is all of us have responsibility to our stakeholders, which would be students, but also the private sector, whether they're growers, home gardeners, et cetera. And Dr. Fontenot is doing an excellent job reaching out to a wide diversity of stakeholders that then will support our research, teaching, and extension efforts and make us stronger. So this is something that we welcome sharing, how we disseminate some of our not only basic but applied research information to our stakeholders, our clientele, and they in turn then would be very supportive to us as we continue to get funding and expand our horticultural programs here. So kind of a unique system that's made American agriculture strong over the years is our tripartite research, teaching, and outreach or extension programs that both Dr. Fontenot and Dr. Motzenbacher are doing an excellent job in. Okay, well, I guess without further ado, we'll continue with our next speaker. Our next speaker is Dr. Heather Kirk Ballard. Dr. Kirk Ballard is an assistant professor and state extension specialist of consumer horticulture here at the LSU Agricultural Center. Dr. Kirk Ballard has both a research and teaching appointment within the Ag Center and LSU. Her research interests include sustainable landscaping, medicinal plants, in addition to home vegetable and fruit production. Dr. Kirk Ballard is the host of the Get It Growing extension program, disseminated throughout by video throughout the state of Louisiana and also throughout print media. She's kind of the main program specialist disseminating to the public in terms of horticultural information to home gardeners and also the commercial industry as well. And her program focuses on not only home gardening and consumer needs. She also uses her expertise in public outreach and marketing to help consumers to be more successful and sustainable gardeners. So without further ado, Heather will be talking about engaging consumers in best management practices of ornamental and edible crops. Heather?
Thank you. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. So thanks for having me today. This is the first time I've participated in this, this collaboration between LSU and Mendel University, and I'm very excited to be here today. As Dr. Pika said, I have what I think is the most fun job at the LSU AgCenter and in the horticulture department. I get to take the research of Dr. Fontenot and Dr. Motzenbacher and Dr. Pika and other professors that are in our department and bring it to the people. So I have that fun task. So today I want to talk to you, Kiki has already mentioned, Dr. Fontenot has already mentioned how she disseminates her information to the public. As part of the extension cooperative, we need to bring our research to the public. And as part of my programming, as Dr. Pika said, I am the host of the Get It Growing program. And that is how we get the information to our consumers and home gardeners. Now, I want to tell you all a little bit about the Extension Service, a little bit of history here in the United States. The Extension Service began first with the Morrill Act in 1862, which established the land-grant colleges. And at those colleges, like LSU, that was established in 1874, the scientific investigation of agriculture and the mechanical arts can be carried out, and that happens at more than 100 colleges and universities across our nation. And then the Hatch Act is where we extend the research. So in 1887, multi-state research funds to conduct agricultural research programs at state agricultural experiment stations across the 50 states. And then the Smith-Lever Act brings in the extension portion. So the Cooperative Extension Service that's associated with each land-grant institute is then brought to the people. So it's broken down in 3 stages. We've got our federal agencies, the national organizations and associations or corporations such as the USDA, that's our Department of Agriculture, and the National Institute of Food and Agriculture. Then we have the state level, we're talking about here, the land-grant universities, the academic departments, the experimental station, and then the extension. And then we go to our local government agencies, organizations, associations. That's at the regional and county level, at those offices where our county agents distribute that information to the public. So the Smith-Lever Act was the establishment of cooperative extension. It's the federal law that established the system of the cooperative extension services, and it connected the land-grant universities to educate the citizens on current developments in agriculture. And this is how farmers learn new agricultural techniques, information was produced by the experiment station, and research is brought to the people. So you can see Kiki here out in the field with some farmers on one of her extension visits. So land-grant colleges and universities, such as LSU, are in every state. Extension agents and specialists are associated with land-grant universities, and then work at the county parish level, which is the local communities. And all of this is funded by the USDA, state, and county funds. The campus-based extension faculty teach extension agents the latest research, and the cooperative extension partners with farmers to apply research knowledge to solve agricultural problems. And the relationships has played a major role in the modernization of farming in the United States. Some of the areas of cooperative extension today, we're focusing mainly on fruit and vegetables, food and nutrition, we're going to talk about in a little bit, but these are some of the areas where we focus: agricultural and food biosecurity, agricultural systems, animal and animal products, biotechnology and genomics, economics and commerce, family, youth and communities, food, nutrition and health, food and nutrition research programs, natural resources and the environment, pest management, plants and plant products, and technology and engineering. And so here at LSU, we have 5 regions with 64 parishes. State and these different regions so that we can disseminate this information to those parishes. Now, the LSU AgCenter plays a huge role in that dissemination. LSU Ag Communications, which I'm heavily involved with as the spokesperson for horticulture. And you can see all these different areas: 4-H development, community, crops, the environmental and natural resources, family and home, food and health, lawn and garden, livestock, and money and business. There's 17 research stations associated with the LSU AgCenter. And, we do a little bit of research here, there, and everywhere. And so these are the places where our studies are carried out, and then we can disseminate to our audiences. So I work with other specialists, such as Dr. Ron Strahan, who's our weed specialist, our plant specialist, who is Dr. Raj Singh, Dr. Kiki Fontenot, who's our vegetable specialist, these talks today on vegetables. Now, how do we reach our audience? Well, through Ag Communications, we use, and myself as the host, we use print media. I write weekly articles on pertinent information of what's going on, goes to newspapers. We also print in magazines. There are blogs. We produce a calendar every year that provides information for homeowners so that they know what to do in their vegetable gardens that time of year. It provides monthly tips. And then there's also radio outreach, a weekly television show. The Get It Growing television videos are sent to state stations across the entire state. And then we also have social media outlets and a YouTube channel. Print media, obviously, we have Louisiana Agriculture Magazine is how we disseminate information. We use local newspapers to have garden articles once a week. And again, I mentioned the Get It Growing Lawn and Garden calendar, where consumers have that at their fingertips, what they need to be doing in the gardens. And then Louisiana Agriculture Magazine puts out the most recent research coming out of the LSU AgCenter. Video outreach is extremely important, as Dr. Fontenot mentioned. With COVID, we had to switch gears from meeting in person field days to going to online videos that people could access at any time. Now, what was unique about the COVID-19 pandemic is that the forced stay-at-home orders got people kind of bored. There was also a little scarcity on, supply chains. Am I going to be able to get food? So people with time on their hands and the green industry being able to stay as essential workers, people were going to garden centers, and what were they doing? They were buying vegetables and vegetable seeds. They were doing all sorts of work in the garden. And well, if you can't get in touch with the cooperative extension, for all these newfound gardeners, how are you going to get this information? Well, we made that quick transition to video outreach. And you can see here we have a YouTube channel. We also send, like I said, those videos are sent weekly to the local news stations across the state. And we always try to present information that is critical at that time. What to do in the spring, what to do in the fall, when we're harvesting certain fruits, when we're harvesting certain vegetables, how to be more productive and sustainable. If this works, I'd like to play this. This is just an example.
After that hard freeze, we finally got some beautiful weather. We're ready to get out there.
Heather, we can't hear the audio. It may be that whenever you shared your screen, you didn't share with audio. There's a little checkbox that you have to click.
Oh, okay. Let me see. Where would that be?
So you'll have to stop sharing and then
Okay.
reshare. And whenever you reshare, look in the top left-hand corner. There's just going to be a little toggle switch that'll say share with computer audio.
Sorry about that, guys. Okay.
It's okay. It happens to everybody. It's really difficult to remember that.
Okay. So where do I?
So whenever
Yes.
you're on that screen that shows all the different squares that you can share, look in the top left-hand corner. Here, I'm going to take a screenshot of it and put it in the chat so you can see what I'm talking about.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
We probably don't have to show the video. I thought it might. It's a brief video, but for sake of time, maybe I should carry on.
Just put in the chat.
Not work. We will post the link if you want us to a
Yeah,
website.
let's just do that so I don't fumble around on here and move forward. But that was just one of the examples of the brief videos that we send out to the stations. Are y'all see my screen now?
Yes,
With
for
my
sure can.
PowerPoint? Okay, excellent. So, we've got media, print, we've got videos that are sent to the news stations, there's radio that we participate in, and we also engage consumers with social media platforms. This has become so important. You've got Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn. There are so many avenues that we can reach our clientele. So the global digital growth, just look at this. This is January 2021 versus January 2020. We've increased 81 million in the total population that are using global digital information and platforms. There are 93 unique mobile phone users, 316 million internet users, and 490 million active social media users. So where do you think we're going to get the most bang for our buck? Well, we've got it here at the LSU AgCenter. Anna Rebeck is our social media strategist, and the LSU AgCenter communications does an excellent job of reaching the public through social media. So why do people use social media? Well, to be social, to be part of a community, to stay up to date with the news, the knowledge, research. Of course, it's entertaining. Basics. If you're using this type of platform to promote your information, you want to have consistent posting. You want to schedule post times for the highest audience engagement. You want to engage with the followers, ask them to participate in certain activities. You want to have a different content mix. You want to have videos and photos. You want to include articles, and you want to share other collaborative posts. So why social media for doing this? For promoting the extension service? Well, brand building for the LSU AgCenter, personal connection with the consumer. You reach millions, not thousands, millions of people for little to no money. You can utilize selling and advertising products. You can post update and news quickly, and you teach the consumers the knowledge that you've learned. So here are just some of our social media outreach outlets. You know, we have Facebook, one of our big things, Instagram, and I was able to utilize that this time during COVID to share a survey with the entire state of Louisiana through the social media pages. And so we wanted to understand how gardening changed for folks during COVID. Remember, restaurants are closed down, gyms are closed down, people are going crazy. They're stuck indoors. So what do? They went out and they gardened. And so through these different outlets, I was able to gain information about what was going on with our consumers, what they were interested in gardening, how much they increased their gardening, were they going to continue to garden? And that's information that I can provide to our growers so that they know what kind of production that they need to kick up in order to meet the consumer demand. So, you know, as you can see from this survey, 82% gardeners said that they increased the amount of time that they spent gardening during the COVID-19 pandemic, and 81% said that they would continue to garden the same way when things go back to normal. So that's great news for our state and great news for our industry. And one thing that I wanted to leave you all with is we asked the consumers, what exactly were they growing during the COVID-19 pandemic? And as you can see here, the largest category was, of course, vegetables. So it's such an important part of what our consumers do at home and how they're participating in gardening are those vegetables and edibles, things that, you know, they can grow in their own backyard. And that's all I have for you all today. So if you have any questions, I'll be glad to take them.
I'm afraid there are no questions at this point, and we are running a little, well, we're almost at 10 o'clock, which is time for the next session, which is going to be the student session. If there are any other questions, I will send, for Dr. Kirk Ballard, I'll put her email address on the chat box. Is that okay?
Sounds good. Thank y'all.
Thank you for the excellent presentation, Heather, and your work is increasingly important as we've gone to more of a electronic media-based platform for information dissemination, and perhaps like the Czech Republic, for those of you that don't know, here in the United States, gardening is our #1 hobby. So Heather's outreach and spokesperson activity work is critical to the advancement of the horticulture sector here in the state. Okay, great. So thank you. So our last but not least presentation in the Food Symposium Tuesday morning session will be by Judy Myhand. Judy is a senior instructor in the food science and nutrition area here at the LSU Agricultural Center. She's got a number of years of experience working on wholesome foods, sharing her knowledge and skills as they relate to the acquisition, preparation, storage, and consumption of food. Judy teaches courses in nutrition, food science, food preparation, and food and culture at Louisiana State University. She regularly travels. She's part of a study abroad course when we'll open up again to many European countries. She's developed recipes that promote good, healthy nutritional diets and consumption, food consumption. And this effort is called the Farm Fresh meals for Louisiana, which is part of the Harvest of the Month program that Dr. Motzenbacher talked about. So she's a valuable contributor to the other end of the spectrum, the consumption aspect of horticultural products. So Judy will be talking about increasing the likelihood that more fruits and vegetables will be consumed. So Judy, please.
Hello, everybody. I hope you can hear me. Let me know.
I can hear you and I can see your presentation.
Okay,
Yes.
Very good. Thank you. The picture that you see on the screen right now of the young lady taking a bite of okra on the with her little red t-shirt on is from a program that we did last summer to try to increase the consumption of vegetables. And one of the things that we found is by bringing students together at a summer camp and introducing them to the farmers and letting them see people that they respected take tastes of nutritious vegetables that they were more likely to take a bite themselves. We fixed roasted okra and we fixed smothered okra, and we did a little taste test where they said whether they liked it, loved it, or that they just tried it. And overwhelmingly, our response was that they loved both the roasted okra and the smothered okra. And that's something that I think people wouldn't necessarily think would happen. So my objectives for today, and I know that we're short on time, very short on time, so I'm going to just zip through this because what I want to do is give you something to think about. I want everybody to think about this. Today we've heard so much about growing vegetables and increasing gardening, increasing access to vegetables. But one of the things that both the presentation on the Czech Republic and my presentation and others that you will see is that people aren't consuming them. We're increasing their availability as much as we can, but what is the barrier? What is the difference between presenting the vegetables and making them available to people and having them actually consume them? So what I wanted to do today was examine and discuss the barriers to consumption of fruits and vegetables, both on a personal level. I wanted everybody to think about that. What is it that interferes with your ability to consume fruits and vegetables? The general public, things that you've observed in the general public, and then in the state and countrywide, and even now I realize even globally. So one thing that we would need to think about in trying to encourage, or why it's even worth our time to work to get people to consume more vegetables, is to describe the consequences and then acknowledge the benefits. So one of the things that I have learned over time is that it's one thing to say that things are nutritious and that we need them to improve our health. But when I can find an economic benefit, that's when I can really get people to listen. So one of the things that I want us to think about, and we're going to talk about, or well, possibly at some point, is what are some effective ways to increase consumption? What have we found will increase consumption? And then describe what we've done and what we hope to do. So the barriers are things like access to fresh produce, and we are all doing what we can to improve that. The cost. So the thing about the cost didn't exactly have to do with the fact that fresh produce was more expensive than other foods, as much as it had to do with the fact that people's perception was that if they bought fresh produce, it would have a very short shelf life, that it might go bad more quickly. But it was also because they thought it would need to be prepared and they didn't know if they had enough time to prepare it, and then they might end up throwing it away. They lacked cooking knowledge. And then some Americans live in areas known as food deserts, or food apartheid is another name that we've been using to describe it lately, where there's a lot of food available, but it's not necessarily good food. So when I describe food deserts, though, I say where access to healthful food is limited. So what are the consequences? Well, what we know in the United States, and this is actually probably an underestimate, is that about half of all American adults have one or more preventable chronic disease. And when I say preventable, I mean those chronic diseases that are directly related to the consumption of fewer fruits and vegetables, 117 million individuals. About 2/3 of U.S. adults are overweight and obese, and that's about 155 million individuals. One of the things that I noticed on one of the charts is that there was an increase in calories being consumed over time, but not a change in fruits and vegetable consumption. So those calories were coming from fats, is what we saw on the slide. So what bothers me, and I teach future health professionals, including dietitians, and one of the points that I want to make to them is that these conditions have been highly prevalent for more than 2 decades. And the point I'm trying to get across is we've been doing all kinds of things in the meantime, trying to intervene, and we've fallen short of increasing fruit and vegetable consumption. So what we know, due to some CDC research and some USDA research, we know that 90% of the U.S. population does not meet the daily vegetable intake recommendations, which is on the average about 2.5 cups of vegetables are recommended per day. And for fruit, only about 15% of the U.S. population meets the daily fruit intake recommendation. Sorry that I mixed that around a little bit. Whoops, what's happening? Okay. So what that means is that, and that is more in the range of 1 cup to 1.5 cups of fruit is recommended to be consumed daily. So some of the solutions that we know about that have been tried to improve access, to improve availability, affordability of fruits and vegetables. Some of the places that we've gone are to retail stores, farmers markets, farm to institution, which is what Dr. Motzenbacher was talking about, farm to school programs, but we've increased also to say anybody who feeds a lot of people. We're trying to increase their access to fresh fruits and vegetables, in particular those grown by the farmers in Louisiana. Worksite food standard changes, environmental interventions, things to ensure that people have fresh fruits and vegetables available to them. So the CDC provides guidance and funding, and that's been going on for a long time. And the USDA has programs like Fruits and Veggies, More Matters campaigns. But these have also been going on for a long time, and yet over this 20-year period that I was talking about, we haven't seen an increase, or at least not one that is noticeable in fruit and vegetable intake. So there's some other kinds of settings, single setting interventions, such as community gardens, farmers market voucher programs with like WIC and SNAP and other kinds of programs like that are increasing farmers market availability, being able to use the monies that are available through these federal programs to pay for vegetables at farmers markets. And despite all these initiatives, fruit and vegetable consumption is lower than recommended. And the dietary guideline, when they met to come up with the new dietary guidelines, they determined that no matter where food is obtained, meaning is it at the home, in the school, in the grocery store, at the market, the diet quality of the U.S. population doesn't meet the recommendations. And this is the same for over and under consumed nutrients and food groups. I put that in there after watching the first presentation because something that I noticed had to do with not just those fruits and vegetables or those foods we should consume more of, but also those nutrients that we might want to consume less of, like fats and added sugars and sodium. So what are we doing and what do we hope to do? We took this little picture I took this little picture from the internet, which shows some children playing with some Brussels sprouts. And I was just going to tell you a little story about a program that we did with the Early Childhood Education Lab preschool here on campus, where we introduced children to Brussels sprouts. We let them handle them. We let them see them growing. They were able to peel the Brussels sprouts and get very familiar with them. Then we roasted them and they tasted them and they loved them. So all those efforts that we're making, I've observed it on a personal level, not through research, but we're getting ready to do that in April. Observed a change in attitude for these children once they had, another thing that we did is we let them observe people that they admired, sports athletes from LSU eating vegetables, and that encouraged them to give them a taste test. So through the Seeds for Success efforts and the Harvest of the Month, we are increasing. What we've done is we've created some videos on preparing some of the vegetables that are from the local farmers, fruits and vegetables from local farmers, and we're educating the school food service on how to prepare them and serve them, and we've taste tested these recipes to determine whether they would be acceptable by children, and for the most part they are. But we also know that we need to do more community education, because remember I said people get their food different places. One of the places that they get their food is at home, and so we've been doing family cooking classes through a program that I developed called Ingredients for Hope, going out into the community and teaching families how to cook and use fresh fruits and vegetables. I was really excited when I heard that one of the things that is being done is developing vegetables that can be stored for a longer time and possibly be available to food distribution sites, food banks, because we work hand in hand with the Hope Ministries food distribution site, which is a client choice food distribution site. And one of the things that we try to do is make it into a healthy food bank where there are more fruits and vegetables available. And we hope to partner with farmers to increase the amount of vegetables that are available, and then at the site, at the food distribution site, actually teach the classes. So I know our time is up, so I zipped through that, and I really did want us to have a discussion, if that's possible.
Thank you very much, Judy, for the very interesting talk. And yes, I believe we might have a little bit of time. We're running a little bit over, but Jonathan, do you have any questions?
I'm afraid I don't see any questions in the chat box, Dr. Myland. I will pass on you. We might have just recently seen something. Okay. Basically, okay, Dr. Fakluda says that educating children is about the only effective way for people to significantly change consumption patterns. People get used to their habits, and it's hard to change older people. Dr. Houtling says that coordinated approaches are also apparent.
One of the things that we've found is that if the children are taught about fruits and vegetables and taught about nutrition, and then they go home and they try to teach their parents a little bit about fresh fruits and vegetables, that there's a lot of resistance. And so that's one of the reasons why we started to do the programs in the community, so that we could not just teach the children, but also teach their parents. And one of the things that parents have a tendency to really appreciate is some research has been done about the economic benefit of healthy eating, and that it's estimated to be about $114.5 billion per year in the United States, that this would be a benefit that would be determined by medical savings, increased productivity, and prolonged life. And so convincing people to the value of eating those fruits and vegetables, very important.
Great. Okay. Well, I think another thing that we're doing both here at LSU and Mendel University, we both have food incubators, and we're trying to make food more convenient, taste better, so folks will appreciate the value-added aspects, and then go to more plant-based diets that are rich in nutrition and taste good and are convenient to eat and prepare. So I guess without further ado, we're running a little bit late, but I think we've had a series of excellent 6 presentations, and thank you everyone for the very informative information. The bottom line is, you know, as things are going to be opening up again, we look forward to more personal face-to-face interaction, both here in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and also in Lednice and Brno and Czech Republic, exchange of faculty and staff and students as we all learn and grow together. We've heard some excellent talks on how responsive we are here to our clientele, say in the state of Louisiana, but one of our missions, also a critical mission here at LSU, is for global outreach and to have a positive impact on the lives of people, not only here in Louisiana, United States, but throughout the world. And I think many of us are doing that. And so however we can continue to be of value and benefit to consumers and partners in the Czech Republic, as you try to make your food more rich and nutritious and sustainable, from not only from a environmentally sustainable standpoint, but from an economically standpoint as well. So again, thank you everyone, and we look forward to our 7-year collaboration continuing to build between LSU and Mendel University in many areas all along the value chain of production, processing, marketing of food products. So thank you very much. I believe that will be the end. The session will be recorded. It has been recorded. I believe it's going to be available for all of us. Perhaps Ivana, Sarah, you'll disseminate that link in the future. So thank you very much. We have a wealth of other informational programs throughout the week, and we look forward to, as your schedule permits, participating in those as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Pika. Thank you, Dr. Hapshen, and all the presenters today. I really loved the chat and discussion that was happening on site, and I have about 6 or 7 points that you guys made today about what can be discussed as next steps as cooperation. We will be posting the link, as you have seen and registered. We will post the link to a website with all these presentations and contact information as we go through this week.